Good morning, I'm New CENTER Maine's Don Kerrigan here with this week's Political Brew. We are joined by our analysts, outgoing Republican State Senator Lisa Keim and former Republican Democratic Senator Cathy Breen. Thank you both for being with us. And did you have early nights or late nights election night?
Mine was very late. For me, I stayed up till almost 2 and just couldn't turn it off because I just was wondering what was going on. And then my eyes popped open at just after 6, and I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening now?
Yeah, Cathy?
I was kind of up off and on in the night and like checking my phone and sort of tracking it. So I didn't have a great night's sleep.
Yeah. And you obviously the outcome was not what you had hoped for. Lisa, I'm guessing it was what you wanted. So Cathy, I'll start with you. What's your reaction and what happens now?
Well, Donald Trump made a lot of promises to voters and to people around the country. I worry a lot if they come true. In particular, I'm very concerned about our climate. I think he will be very favorable for the fossil fuel industries and really roll back the progress that we've made on renewable energy, which is very, very important to Maine people. I think that civil liberties, I think basic, the civil service of many thousands of federal employees who've, made a career just showing up and doing the people's work in federal government for so long. I worry about that.
Those are not political appointments.
No, but he and others in his camp have made it clear that they really want to clean house on, the technocrats in government. And, we'll see. I mean, the thing is, in his first term, he really was not a very good executor. And I think this term, there are a lot of more people around him who made a lot of plans to help him execute better. And if he does, things are really going to change, and it worries me a lot.
Lisa?
I'm excited for some changes. I'm excited, and I believe most Americans are, right? Because he won the popular vote, just shockingly, a resounding victory, which just really surprised me. Border security, Americans are looking forward to that. We're looking forward to being energy independent. Looking forward to
Which we already are.
Right, and increase our output, right, of domestic energy. And also, I mean, we're excited to see some changes in our economy and, have tariffs addressed and inflation addressed. People really are, I personally am excited to see what will happen with school choice, and I am really excited to see some of the people that have come around him. What will Tulsi Gabbard, what will her impact be on the administration? I think that's good. I'm excited about RFK Jr., and I'm excited to see big pharma and big tech really taken down, and special interests get out of the FDA and really put people first, right, and not special interests. So I think we have a lot to look forward to. I hope that Trump listens to the plethora of wise people that I believe have come around him to support him, because he needs to listen to them and take advice and really move the country forward.
So there are a couple things, and Cathy, I'll start with you on this. Obviously, the Democrats are doing tremendous amount of soul searching and probably some finger pointing as well, from what we read and see, and asking, where did the party go wrong? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, I have to say the party did very, very well here in Maine. So, I think nationally, the economy, I agree with Lisa that the economy is really, and inflation, we've had over several decades now widening disparities in income, and people really feel like they have a hard time getting ahead. And of course, the pandemic and the ensuing inflation, it's been very difficult.
And did voters obviously didn't abide the message from the Biden administration that we've got control of this and the economy is going well now. They clearly didn't see it that way.
I don't think that's the way they feel. I don't think that's the way they feel when they're in the grocery store and at the gas pump. And there's still a lot of people in Maine and otherwise who are really struggling and trying to get a leg up in an economy that has become increasingly disparate from the high end to the low end.
Right, and it's maybe that and Lisa was, from where you sit, granted you're a Republican, do you think that the Harris campaign didn't recognize that sufficiently?
I think it's mostly the Democrat Party elites. They chose Kamala as a DEI pick. They expected the American people to ignore that she was completely unfit to lead the greatest country on earth. She was unable to put together coherent sentences, unable to really coherently speak on what her policies would be. People saw Trump as a strong and effective leader that would address the issues that they care about, the economy, the illegal immigration, which is just deeply affecting their communities, and inflation that's really hurting them. And so definitely the Democrats are probably going to have to look back and say, okay, how are we missing the ability to reach voters? But they're going to have to start with really picking someone to run as in their leadership positions that the people pick, not that the elite pick. And that's a real problem with what happened, I believe, with Kamala. She is unfit to lead, and they put her forward anyway.
Okay. And there were lots of predictions that the abortion issue was going to drive huge numbers to vote for the Harris campaign, for Kamala Harris. And it probably did, but clearly not enough. Was there an overestimation of the importance of that issue, Cathy?
I think there was perhaps in candidate voting, but of course you see all the ballot initiatives around the country that are in favor of women's autonomy and women's reproductive choice. So it's a really mixed bag.
Yeah.
And certainly in this state, we've affirmed over and over again our commitment to reproductive freedom.
And Lisa, briefly, that same question.
Yeah, I think abortion was overblown as a concern. It was a discussion point we had before as well here on this show. And people don't see the need to vote for a candidate sort of in Maine to help a person in Texas get an abortion if that's what they want, right? Because it's become now a local issue and not a federal issue.
All right. And not going away, though, that's for sure. All right, thank you. We'll be back in a few minutes with part 2 of Political Brew. Welcome back to this week's Political Brew. I'm News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan, here with Democratic analyst Cathy Breen, Republican analyst Lisa Keim. Let's talk for a little bit about the elections in Maine. The big one, of course, the big suspense, and as close as you can get, is CD2, Jared Golden, Austin Terrio, which now is going to a ranked choice count and presumably a recount after that. A recount has been requested by the Terrio campaign for like fewer than 2,000 votes, the last I saw, separating these two. Lisa, I think you said you were surprised by that.
I was surprised by the loss. I really thought Austin had this. I'm heartbroken for him and for his campaign team. They did an amazing job, just full on. They gave it everything they had, and it seems they've come up short, and that is unfortunate. I think that overall, Maine came out pretty strong. We gained seats in our House and in our Senate, and
we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but they were like overspent, of course, a lot, and $4 million just on negative ads. Those have impact. They absolutely do. So, and it's hard to be a three-term incumbent.
Absolutely.
And Golden, tied himself to Trump. Said I support Trump policies, and he knew sort of. He read the tea leaves correctly and knew that he had to align himself with Trump, and he did that. And he kept the seat. It's very hard to take out an incumbent.
Yeah, Cathy.
Well, I would say that I don't know if he aligned himself with Trump, but he also didn't distance himself from Trump. Obviously, Trump endorsed Austin Terrio very publicly. There was a huge amount of money put into that race from all over the country. But, Jared Golden has done a good job at walking a very fine line. So even though the district voted for Trump and got that electoral vote, the district also is supporting Jared Golden.
And this is the fourth time he's walked that same line,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
So he's been able to do that. Are you at all surprised, or did you expect he would pull it out?
I really didn't know. I was watching sort of from a distance, but I do find it interesting that it's going to come to another ranked choice voting runoff, because of course that's how he gained the seat to begin with. It's happened several times, and
Right.
you know that this seat is, you know, one of those seats across the country that's been in play for decades and probably will be.
Right, and of course nationally, the Democrats are hoping to hold on to that majority in the U.S. House. It looks like they may not make it,
Yeah.
but the numbers currently aren't looking good for them.
Yeah. The other thing is, with Republicans gaining control of the U.S. Senate, what I'm very curious about is how Susan Collins is going to walk that line, because she has not been a Trump supporter. Many of her policies that she has been a moderate on for many years in her career, you know, she's going to have a very tough puzzle to solve, I think. Either she aligns herself with Trump and maybe alienates a good number of people in the state, or she doesn't and she becomes more and more marginalized in the U.S. Senate.
Although, if she becomes chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, they can't be too hard on her, because various people are going to want their money.
Is
Well,
Trump
there's
going to let that
plenty-
happen?
There's plenty of issues that people who maybe are not, even with Senator Collins, is she may not maybe align with Trump on all of his ideas, but there's plenty to work on that she certainly does agree with him on. And hopefully that's where they first come out, is just going for the things that move the needle that they can all get together on, because they are, the House being so thinly divided, the Congress is going to be a rough starting point, I think, for Trump.
I think it'll be very interesting to see who winds up in leadership in the U.S. Senate, and whether that's a person, whether that team is closely aligned with Trump. I imagine they will be, and then committee assignments go from there. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah. So, Maine legislature, Democrats retain control of the House and Senate, but very close, particularly in the House. That means that they can control the agenda, and the governor of the same party, although the last session there didn't seem to be very good relationships between the Democratic leaders in the House and Senate and the governor. Perhaps that'll be different. Let's talk on the big picture of that. First of all, Lisa, I'll start with you. How will the closeness of the balance of power in the House and Senate, how's that going to affect things this year?
It's going to make things interesting. There needs to be leadership that's willing to work across the aisle to move some things, because that no one really is totally, no legislator is completely in one camp, whether Democrat or Republican. So there'll be crossover issues that they'll want to be able to move the needle on, especially anything that has to have an emergency vote, which needs the 2/3. The budget will be really interesting because we're facing a major shortfall, and that is at the feet of the Democrats who've been running the show here. And now they're going to have to look, how are we going to ratchet back? There's going to be a lot of infighting among the Democrats around the money issue itself, and that's going to start out really quickly. Yeah. So they're going to need Republicans, I believe. I'm sure they would like to do a majority budget, but they may have difficulty because there's going to be some deep cuts that are going to have to happen there.
Yeah. And Cathy, you used to be in charge of making that budget happen.
Yes.
Do you see it? Do you analyze the same way as Lisa does?
Well, I have a little bit of a different perspective, because I have been in the process. Since that March revenue report came out, first of all, state revenues have been rolling along in a very favorable direction. Secondly, inflation has decreased, not as much as we'd like, but it has gone down. And so I think I'm going to go out on a limb. I think the December revenue report is not going to be nearly as grim as the March one. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, don't forget that Democrats have also built up our rainy day fund to its absolute cap, and it's the max that it's ever been in Maine history. So we have a good cushion in the rainy day fund, and I think that there might need to be some hard choices, but I don't think it's going to be as severe as folks are focusing on from that March projection.
With these close margins, will there be more partisan rancor or less?
Unfortunately, Don, I see it, and Lisa has seen it more recently. It it's just not good. It doesn't do Maine people any good. And you know, I believe people should show up and work for the best. And you know, whether it's Democrats in charge or Republicans in charge, that sort of deep partisan rancor, it makes for good news. It doesn't make for great policy.
Yeah, we'll
What do you
see.
think, Lisa?
We'll see what comes of it. You know, I think it'll go issue by issue. There'll be some things they'll work together on. There'll be some things that'll be very deeply divided. And you know, with the budget, last time we had a record surplus, and Democrats tried to rob the highway fund. They tried to take the milk money, and they also decreased pensions exemptions. So, and that was with a surplus. So I think we're really looking at some real interesting times.
Those got turned back by the leadership.
Yeah, they did get turned back, but that's what we've got going, is this real pull to raise taxes. So that might happen.
Okay, just a
National
minute
popular
left.
vote.
Winners and losers for the week. Kathy, I'll start with you.
All right, I'm going to say that the winners were Maine people, because I think a lot of the policies that Democrats have promoted in Maine, that the governor has promoted, including work on climate change, is going to go forward. I would say a loser would also be the climate, because I think any sort of federal support for renewable energy and renewable infrastructure, for offshore wind, all those things, all that's going to dry up. The Trump administration is going to absolutely favor fossil fuel companies, and we will have continuing increases in the climate crisis, and I'm sad about that.
Lisa.
So losers for the week, Democrat Party elites. I think that they got their butt kicked, and the people resoundingly rejected the Democrat vision for America. So they basically said, Trump's not Hitler and I'm not a racist. And I think the Maine voters are the winners. The poll workers this week, we pulled off another successful and safe and secure election. Poll workers just put so much time and effort. And then also law enforcement on that day, right? We had all those hoax calls. So they were on high alert all day. And then in Rumford, right at the end of polls, we had an active shooter situation. So after a grueling day, law enforcement, they were so present all day long in polling locations all across Maine. And then they went out to deal with just, there were sirens going by my house all night as I was, not all night, but for a very long time while I was watching results come in. And I just thought, wow, law enforcement have given their all today. Just a grueling day, and then they're right there for us the entire time. So Maine voters, we had a great election day. We were safe due to law enforcement, and I'm just so grateful for those people.
Thank you both very much. We're going to have a lot to talk about in the weeks ahead.